go. Good job, Perky. He wanted to press the button. Nicely done. I helped just a little. But Perky always helps me, and we're going to tell a story. I'm going to tell a story today. And Perky, says Perky says it's a very old story because it happened to me when I was 16. It's a personal narrative. And yes, that makes it historical. Good point, Perky. But it really is a historical tale because in Monroe County at that time, in Bloomington, there was a Monroe County Farm Bureau Co-op. And farmers would go there and they would get supplies and they could take their ear corn to the mill and they could have it ground into grain. And so I'm going to tell my story of going to the Monroe County Farm Bureau Co-op long, long ago. But need to get everybody settled, and so I have made, you see him now, do you? Yeah. I put a little pathway of animal crackers. I know you love. That's how he shows his love. Then you can follow them all the way to, yes, there's more up there, so get busy. And then up, and you dropped one. Well, save that for later. Maybe I'll have that one. Okay. So, my story. Long, long ago, as Perky would have me say, when I was 16, my driver's license was brand new when my father told me that since I was a new driver, I should be the one to take our ear corn to the Monroe County Farm Bureau Co-op to have it ground into grain. I was honored. As one of 3 daughters on a dairy farm, I desperately wanted to show my worth, and I was pleased to be given this task. But he told me of the challenge, and it was a challenge. Because to do this task, I would have to drive our 1954 Flatbed Ford. And it provided many a challenge for any driver, especially a new one. It had a flatbed that was 16 feet long, seemingly stretching out miles behind me. It had a huge rusted cab, and inside that cab there had never been a rearview mirror. The steering wheel was so wide, the circumference of my beloved granny. And next to me, the stick shift long ago had missing pins. And so it just sort of spun around wildly, waiting for you to get lucky enough to find the right gear. And then the driver's side door. The door would not latch, so if you went around a curve too dramatically, it would pop open and become a traffic hazard. So I was taking all of this in, sitting in the driver's seat, trying to listen to my father's instructions as he threw several big gunny sacks filled with ear corn onto the back of the flatbed right behind the cab. Now, I was listening carefully because my father speaks a language known as mumble. And he speaks it very fluently. I speak it pretty well, and I can understand a little. And so I heard ear corn come back with grain. And then I was off. I pulled around in our little semicircle of a drive in front of our barn there on Bethel Lane across from Marlin School. And this, in first gear, was easy because I'd done this many a time with this truck in the hay fields as others would run behind, placing the hay bales on the flatbed. It was one of my favorite jobs on the farm. But here I was on the road, new driver, with the flatbed Ford. And I pulled up on Bethel Lane, and again, first gear, into Old 37, and down that windy hill right before you turn to Griffey Lake. You know the one? So one of those curves on that hill, the driver's side door flew open. But I caught it in time, and I pulled it too, and I found third gear, just like I knew what I was doing. All the way down Old 37 until I turned left onto North College, chugging up that hill with that old 54 Ford, and all the way through town. I was enjoying the confidence that was growing inside me as I was able to drive this truck through town. And then I turned right onto 2nd Street and pulled in to where the Farm Bureau Co-op used to be. When I pulled into that gravelly parking lot drive, which was vast, the store to one side, the mill in front of me, all my confidence drained into my toes because I'd never done this task before. I didn't know what to do. And I noticed that there were lots of men just loitering around, waiting for something to happen. and here I came. I pulled up alongside one of the only men to acknowledge my existence, and I started to roll down, pushed down the driver's side window, and I told him of my errand. And he spat near the front tire and said, "Yep, Missy, you're going to have to pull around and then just back her in. Just back her in." Back her in? Did he not see the length of this flatbed? Did he not see this gear shift spinning wildly by my side? Did he not see the circumference of the... Did he not see the terror growing in my eyes? No, he did not, because he was already walking away toward this crevice that was the opening of the mill. I mean, it was maybe an inch wider on each side than the width of my flatbed. But I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to come home with that grain. I wanted to show Dad I could do this. And so I found first gear, and I started going around in an arc around this big gravel parking lot. I noticed all the men were kind of off to the sides now and were moving away from the opening to the mill. And as I pulled around, I had time to think, and I thought to myself, my father has been here many times. He knows exactly what this task is. He knows exactly what he's putting his 16-year-old daughter through right now. But I would be victorious. I was bound to be victorious. But I was worried as I watched those old men with their heads bent towards each other. I thought they're probably taking bets on whether I'll take down one wall or two. But finally I had moved around, and I saw my challenge somewhat clearly behind me. Of course, no rearview mirror, a little dusty on the window, but I could see that I had underestimated the crevice. I had a good 2 inches on each side to work with, and that man started beckoning with his hand. And so I ground her into reverse. Oh, that was fourth. Ground her into reverse and started backing her up ever so slowly. And that's when I felt the first bead of sweat going down the back of my neck. And I began to envision what would happen as that hand beckoned. I thought of the sound of metal against wood, and I clenched, ready for the sound to happen. But then I was in, and the hand said, "Whoa!" I had done it. All that, and I had done it. I was so filled with exuberation that I popped that noisy driver's side door open. I jumped up onto the back of that flatbed Ford, and I started pulling one bag of ear corn back to the back of the flatbed where there was this gaping hole. You would dump the ear corn into there. That was the mill, and out would come grain. But the old man said, "Well, Mercy, you've done your part. We'll let Jed here do the rest." Well, I looked in a door frame, and Jed was a pretty good-looking 16-year-old-ish young man who had a sign of skepticism on his face, which had turned to one of, "Gotta get to work." And I took that as a sign of respect. And so I went out to the front of the cab, and I rested on its warm grill as I looked out at the old men to see if any money was changing hands. But maybe placing bets had been a figment of my imagination. Pretty soon there was a wallop on the top of the cab, and the old man said, "Ready to go." And so I hopped into the cab of that truck, and behind me on the bed were those same gunny sacks now filled with grain for the livestock on the farm. And as I easily pulled forward out of that mill and out of that Farm Bureau Co-op onto 2nd Street heading home, I was just so filled with success. Now, Father hadn't been there to see this, as many times my victories he was not there to see, but I was coming home with that grain, and I didn't have a bill for damage done to the Farm Bureau Co-op. So I think we both knew that this chore had been a complete success. So that's my story of the 1954 flatbed Ford. I call it a rite of passage. And so I hope you like that story too. I hope it made you think of stories that you might want to share with your family or write down or tell, and oh boy, must have been a good one. Perky's out like a light. And so we'll end here. No one wants to wake up a parrot. Sweet dreams. Happy trails. See you soon in story time.